And joining me to unpack this story is a very, very special guest who has in fact seen the best and the worst of both the worlds. Dr. Katie Holmes has not only been working with strays and countering rabies in the United States, but she has also been at the forefront and at the very epicenter of India's fight against rabies with revered organizations like the All Creatures Great and Small, or AGHS, in Millennium City, Gurugram. Thank you so much once again for taking out the time from your busy schedule and talking with us. Katie, my first question to you, first and foremost, Katie, as you know, we discussed before, you've worked on numerous rabies control projects both in US and India. Now, what struck you most about the differences in sheer strategy or even the challenges between these two countries?
I would say that it's a very different approach. I mean, India is just an astronomical problem in regards to the volume of animals that need to be addressed in this challenge. And so, uh, in India, the primary reservoir for rabies is the dog population, versus here in the United States at this time, wildlife is the primary reservoir. And so, in regards to controlling rabies in the United States, controlling rabies in the wildlife population and mitigating, exposure to wildlife that may or may not have been vectors of rabies. It's important to vaccinate the dogs and cats that have uh, been exposed to wounds of unknown origin. We don't know how they received bites. They need to be vaccinated. They need to be quarantined. And so, it's much easier to do when you have pets in your home and you recognize a wound, you take them to the veterinarian, they get a vaccine, you're able to quarantine them. It's a whole nother you know level of challenge when you have so many street dogs in India. And I don't pretend to have the answers to this, but it is certainly a multifactorial issue that there's so many levels that need to be addressed. And I think that in addition to just the vaccination, sterilization of all the street dogs is certainly hugely important, because if the dogs continue to multiply, then there's more and more dogs that could be vectors for rabies.
Well, of course, there you hit the nail on the head there, Katie. Now, taking from what you just said, what struck you the most about the differences in strategy or the challenges between the two countries, or India and US, are facing right now?
I think it comes down to the local level, and rabies is 100% preventable. And so I think, there's so many dog lovers in India, there's so many dog lovers in the United States. And I think that, in India, there's the colony dogs, and making sure that the dogs that are in each community are accounted for, that if the vaccination status is unknown, that there's so many feeders that are doing wonderful work, taking care of the animals. And so making sure that there's a platform to communicate about the medical history. There's actually an app that I'm aware of. It's called Stray Buddy, and it's a way for colony members to identify the animals, share publicly the vaccination records, sterilization status. And so that's a really important tool, I think, is that everyone needs to take responsibility for the animals that are in their community, and making sure that each dog in their colony, in their neighborhood, in their village is vaccinated, is sterilized, that if there's a wound, they need to take them right in to see a veterinarian, and and just doing the part to sterilize all the animals they can.
Katie, you've firsthand seen how rabies affects both not only animals but also people. Is there a personal story or one moment from your time in India that has really stayed with you till now?
I would say that, there's so many stories, but I think that the bottom line is we don't know many times what animal may be a vector for an infectious disease. And I think that, in my last trip to India, there was this cute little puppy who was recently brought into the shelter, and he was neurologic, but he didn't start out that way. And so I think that fortunately, this particular puppy did not have rabies. He did have distemper, another infectious disease. And so, I think that being mindful of the fact that we have to recognize that there's the humanity and the compassion of, oh, you see this cute puppy, we want to love on it, snuggle it, feed it, make sure it has a good home. But also we have to look at these things from a medical standpoint and a public safety standpoint of, is this particular patient potentially transmitting a disease that could be harmful to not only other dogs, but to humans as well. And so I think that implementing protocols for, proper quarantine and observation before there's introduction to other animals is really important.
Thank you so much. That was Dr. Katie Holmes from Massachusetts. And